a little bit more because we didn't talk much about monetary policy. We just touched on it. But isn't it kind of interesting, dude? So from your perspective, and I know, look, we're both laymen when it comes to this stuff, but we read up a little bit on it. And isn't it kind of interesting, man? It's like the fact that just once again they go, oh, it's like they keep. It reminds me of when a boxer, you know, when they like throw a paw jab, like it's not like a jab to even land, it's just to kind of like gauge the distance, like that shit. Like it's like they keep testing the market by going like, we're thinking about raising interest rates. How fucking panicky are we going to get over that? And then it always goes pretty bad. I mean, it's always like a kind of bad thing. And then they don't raise them. And they go, so we're now on like, what, 7.5 years or something like that of 0% interest rates.
Crazy.
This is unprecedented, completely unprecedented in American history.
And there are so many losers by that. The biggest example is just anyone with money cannot get interest rates on their
savers.
money.
There's no
Yeah,
savers.
You're punished for saving. You're literally losing money to inflation.
Of course, not just savers. It's not just savers. It's like anyone on a fixed income loses because of the inflation. But yeah, but that is an imagine, and it's not just this. It's you have to kind of imagine almost to me like a stream of water falling down, kind of like a hill, and then you're kind of like blocking one angle and directing it to the other side. So you're just directing no one to save. You're going, don't save, gamble. There's no saving anymore. Saving will give you nothing. Saving, you'll lose all your money. So instead of saving, you got to go over here and gamble. Oh, and by the way, gambling's illegal, but our people are on Wall Street. So the only legal gambling you have is our people who happen to have paid for our campaign. I mean, it's so incredibly corrupt, the whole system. But so that, you know, there was talk of interest rates. I mean, the markets have been going wacky over the last couple months. Now, they say, what they all say on the news, everyone in unanimity tends to agree, well, China's doing some currency manipulating, and this is going on in the European markets, and no one seems to think this has anything to do with the fear that we might raise interest rates, and this whole thing comes crashing down.
It seemed to me, this is like a very loose picture, but it seemed like other international banks were starting to pump up their monetary. They were doing stimulus packages, so it almost seemed like America was going to be able to step back on its stimulus package because there was going to be enough global economic growth that, like, all of a sudden America wasn't going to have to do it. But then we're seeing huge slowdowns. Basically, oil's come down in price, and there's this fear that what we're seeing is a bubble in commodities. And we're seeing China's having slow growth. So all of a sudden it was like, oh, no, we still have to be pumping up growth. It seemed to me that that was what was going on. I don't know if I articulated that well.
No, I think that's well said. I think you're right. And I think that but whatever it is, at the end of the day, they didn't raise interest rates. So when I'm sitting here and going like, oh, the whole thing's going to come down, I mean, maybe that's not right. But look, the Fed is saying with that move that they don't think they can raise interest rates either. I mean, look, it's been 7 years.
That's crazy. I didn't even think about that.
Dude, the idea that
if you can't raise it now, when are you going to raise it? We've had growth over the last couple of years.
Well, this is the thing.
We're not in a recession. So if you're using your get out of recession tool right now, what does that actually say for the health of our economy?
Well, that's when you start to think about it this way. Okay, so Obama, and no one, of course, is just because people don't have all these pieces put together. I mean, not no one, but they're just not in the position to ask, but no one's holding like Obama's feet to the fire going like, oh wait, hold on, see, this is they try to claim there's this big separation between the two, like the president appoints the guy but it has nothing to do with them. But it's like, you know, look, like, how can you brag about this recession, I mean this recession being over or whatever? How can you brag about your comeback from this bad economy you were handed, but not acknowledge that you kept 0% interest rates the whole time? So now you've kept that into this is what the boom period is going to be? So what are we going to do in the next bust, huh? Now where's your Keynesian solution?
I thought that was a big problem. That's a big problem to me with voters is, for instance, the recession that took place when Bush was in office, that was basically the busting of the artificial expansion that Clinton created with the housing bubble.
So you're talking about it's really the tech bubble, I think you're talking about.
No, I'm talking about that.
So 2007 Clinton, you're talking?
Yes, 2007 was the crash of the housing bubble.
Yes.
That was orchestrated by Clinton through Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac.
Sure.
He pumped that money into the economy.
Well, also what happened is that, you know, there was a lot of, and I've seen a lot of economists write on this, okay? So a lot of that tech bubble fed into the housing bubble because as the tech bubble was kind of like bursting, what they did to offset that pain was kind of pump money into the housing market. But yes, Clinton set up almost all of the policies that led to the
But then the stupidity is everyone goes, oh, Bush's a horrible president. There was a depression while he was in office. Clinton was a great president. It was a huge party. No, what happened was...
Well, that's insane.
Clinton fucked us, and it went to shit while Bush was in office. And it's a crazy thing that people can't... No one really talks about this. No one really puts it together. So then the idea becomes Bush is a bad president. The economy. I'm not saying I like Bush, but the idea is economy was bad while he was there. We don't like him, and we're seeing the same thing with Obama. He's spent recklessly. At some point, it's going to become a problem for us. But you know who we're going to hate because of that? The person who's in office when it goes to shit.
Well, that's right. I've actually heard that argument made before. That we don't want a libertarian in there. Because everything's going to crash, and they're just going to blame it on the libertarian.
Well, now I'm kind of ranting. I think the role of government, if it's anything, it's to be a good disciplinarian. It's to get in there and say, it's like being the parent who doesn't just feed donuts to its kids, whereas government comes along and, hey, you guys like sugar? Here's your sugar. It's like all it does is...
Well, even if you're defending the idea of government as the honest ref of the game, but I try to point this out all the time, where it's like it's such an infantile projection of a parent figure to project them as to think of the government as the kind of the ref in the game. What more or less the liberal position on government is, that they're kind of the ref in the game, the do-gooder. It's like 10 yards, mark it. You didn't give enough to the poor people. If I could have whistled, that would have been a little bit better. But 15 yards for the billionaire, give a little bit of money to the soup kitchen. Like, that's kind of their thing. Like, but then you look at these things where you're like, so then and everyone, even conservatives project this too, because, something like the war on drugs, or even if, this is the thing, right? I always say this about the war on drugs. It's like, even if people are like people like not quite as radical as me, but who will obviously lots of people will grant you like, oh yeah, no, the war on drugs is a failure, it doesn't work, and we shouldn't do that. But there's still this kind of attitude of like, oh well, like these politicians thought weed was bad, and this is old school thinking that this would be the good solution, would be to lock people up. And then you realize that, like, well, I mean, if you uncover it at all, it's like, well, not right. They profit, and then like that Partnership for Drug-Free America is funded by alcohol, tobacco, now pharmaceutical companies. I mean, they take money from pharmaceutical. No, these people aren't against drug. They're fucking the mafia, and you're getting screwed. And the idea that why do you give them the benefit of the doubt? This is what's so damning about government, about religion, which is another form of the same thing. It's that, and this is what the problem is about, like, when people start looking at Penn State, like, becomes a religion, and people hang up Penn State. When you start, worship, it's like, would you ever just walk into, like, the Gap and assume that guy behind the counter at the Gap has my best interest in heart, and he's not worried about himself and his family, he's worried about me?
They want me to look good at the Gap. That's where I shop, Dave. Why are you shitting on the Gap?
No, I'm just saying, you go in there just kind of like, all right, and you have an attitude, you're like, okay, dude, there's a thread off on this. You're not just kind of like, well, the thread, if you tell me that's the way the thread's supposed to be, you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly, like you said, you get what's going on here. This is the game. They're in it for money.
When the jeans are too tight and he tells me it's because it makes my junk look good, I know he's lying because he wants to sell me jeans.
Your junk never looks good,
I
Rob.
have terrible junk. I know that.
God, your junk sucks so much.